Well, welcome to the show. This is Greg Selber once again, along with Jake Berry. It was a tough weekend. We're not going to come on here and say that it wasn't. Now, what I would like to say is I picked up the paper the next morning and it said something like, same story, different year. Was anyone else even mildly, not offended per se, but just kind of puzzled by that?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. A lot of years, I get kind of mad because, we don't have the talent that they have up north.
Right.
So, for us, just, getting these points and playing a great game, I don't want to say is enough.
Yeah.
But,
it can't be. You have to want more.
Yeah, you have to want more. But just to say that is just,
Well, I guess my point is that, journalists have to be objective. They have to tell it like it is. And, I might have said something like the end of the road or the journey's over or something like that. I just felt like it was kind of saying, see, there we go again. And, I'm not disappointed in any of the kids that went up there, any of the teams that performed well. I'm disappointed in the results because I wanted to win. Obviously, you should have seen us at the PI game. We were going bananas. Mm-hmm. Bottom line is we didn't. It's something we have to just live with until such time as we can break through and start winning those games in the third round. Anyway, I just thought I'd make that a short editorial comment. No personalities involved, no personal attacks. I was puzzled by that headline because I thought it put us in a bad light.
Well, I can say this, and when I first moved here, I kind of had that, it's Valley, right. Small guys and stuff like that. But now, having coached in the Valley, been around our athletes for 7, 8 years, 9 years now,
you're fired.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I appreciate the athletes because yes, we don't have 10 Bradley Stevens. We don't have a bunch of Trevor Spates. Yeah. But what we do have, we cultivate it. And one coach told me a long time ago, when they were filling a head coaching vacancy, he goes, well, who knows how to coach better than the Valley guys? Because, they have to coach with what they have. Up north, it's easy to coach. Well, not easy, but it's easier.
You have a little more talent, yeah. Sure. So, people have always spoken well of the Valley coaches. At any rate, The bottom line is, I'm going to try to avoid saying the bottom line more than 3 times, that's one, is that the season is over and we are very depressed about it. In fact, I have to admit, after the Port Isabel game, I just couldn't find myself putting pen to paper for a day or two, and then I decided just to tell the story in photos. We're going to put all those pictures
up there. Yes, we are tonight.
So, that's the way it works. Edinburgh North loses to Steele. Sherryland loses to Madison, and Port Isabel loses to Lavernia. Okay, well, 3 teams go up to the third round. What we want to do today on the show is first we'll show the highlights, and they're extensive and they're awesome. We're going to really enjoy that in a minute. Then I kind of want to talk about maybe a little bit about each game, but more than that, I kind of want to talk about, so where do these programs stand? What is the legacy that they lead? In other words, how does this Port Isabel team, stack up with the teams of the past, this and that? Do a little fun history lesson, because I prefer to focus on the positive, which is those were 3 great teams, and they met their demise, and such is life. We can live with that. I don't need anybody telling me, we lost again. I saw the games. I know the scores. Big deal. I still love the kids, and I'm sure you do. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that other media don't. It's just that we pretty much try to keep it on a more upbeat note on this group. And again, that's my political commentary for the day. You can send all cards and letters to Jake.
Yes. But, I got to say this. Look, I had a great time this year. You covering, guys like Montelongo, who, his story alone this year was something out of a, soap opera. But, look, great kid, Jacques Guillat, Isaiah Martinez.
Best calves in the Valley, Jacques Guillat. Yeah. They're an incredible thing.
LB. Great kids from PI. You got the kids at Sherryland, Christian Martinez, all those guys.
They're articulate kids. You'll see on those highlights. Those Sherryland guys really are sharp.
And the Edinburgh North kids. I mean, come on.
What a solid group.
It was a great year, and those teams, they should be proud of what they did.
Yeah, I think they are. And the only regrets I have of the season, I had a couple. I was making my list on the way over. First regret is that Roma didn't make it with Orly Solis. Mm-hmm. It's a shame to have a kid go for 2,000 and not break through for the playoffs. That would have been a big story for them. The other, of course, is the injury to Justin Owens. Let's face it, man, he was still leading the league in passing about 6 or 7 weeks in. If he'd have been able to play a full season, that district race would have been a little bit different, and he might have had 2,500 yards, 30 yards, 20-something touchdowns, and about 1,200 rushing. So I guess no regrets about how the season ended up. You go and you do your best. If you lose, you go home. That's the way it works. But I thought the kids comported themselves well. The coaches were great. Some new coaches on the scene. Obviously some players who are going to be coming back next year. It's been a great season. We've got another show to come next week, though, right? We're going to do our honors team. So if you still want to try to nominate that fifth-string punter, please do, because we're looking for kickers, right?
Yes, yes.
Well, hey, we've talked a lot about what happened, so let's take a look at the highlights. And again, Carlos Robledo, the former professional and current professional, if you will, has done a wonderful job all year. We appreciate the work that he and all the people here at 956 do. Let's look at some highlights.
The Sharyland Rattlers came ready to play. Even the littlest of fans were ready to jump into the action. The first big play of the game belongs to Sharyland. Lance Madden finds Brandon Garza to the 25-yard line. 3 plays later, Daniel Morales scores 7-0 Sharyland. Madison, though, ties it up. Cody Enos to Jamichael Brown, 7-0 in the first quarter. We go to the third now. Sharyland down 17-7. Madden to Garza, awesome. Then watch this. Madden breaks a tackle, then leaps from the 4-yard line. It's a 3-point game, 17-14, Madison on top in the third quarter. After a 3-and-out, Sharyland gets the ball right back here. But watch Daniel Yancey pick this one off. 24-14, Madison on top. But Sharyland's next possession, they come right back to cut it through a 3-point advantage. Once again, Lance Madden sidestepping tacklers. Nice little run here. And it's a 3-point advantage for Madison now. Madison would answer right back. This is Byron Daniels, the Texas Tech commit, with the catch there. And he goes 64 yards, 31-21. Madison on top, back up to a 10-point game. Sharyland now. Interception. Jordan Brown finds the ball here. Madison has the ball in great field position. Now here it's 4th down and 1. Sharyland needs a stop. They're down by 10. And watch Enos, the big quarterback, 6'4", gets the first down. Then continues, and he runs it in for a 20-yard touchdown, 38-21. Madison there. They go on to win it by a final score of 45-21.
Obviously, it's not the outcome that you wanted. What was the difference in the game?
Well, I mean, I think one of the biggest ones was turnovers, because we had them within a score in the second half, and we just ended up turning the ball over. That interception for a touchdown was big. It was key, and we just, we had an opportunity there for a field goal in the first half that we just didn't cash in on, and those are difference makers in big games like tonight's, and you can't do that against a team like Madison.
Did you feel like you had a chance there in the second half?
Well, yeah, because it was only a 10-point deficit. We've been there before. Harlingen, we were only down 3, but we were able to come back. So this is a similar scenario for us. So we believe we had a shot at it, but we just made some really bad mistakes at really wrong times. And when they're in their territory, giving up that pick 6 did not help change the momentum.
I'm telling you guys, there wasn't that much difference in this game. Okay, those turnovers made the difference, and when you get 2 good teams going, turnovers are huge. Turnovers are huge, and I told our guys at halftime, I said each team's going to get the ball about 5 times the second half. Okay, and we got to either stop them on 3 possessions, or we got to score 3, or it's going to go down to the end. And fortunately, we got those turnovers.
You feel like maybe if there weren't any turnovers and maybe y'all played more of a flawless game, y'all could have beat them?
Yes, definitely. That would have been better if we had that pick 6 really what turned it around. And I think if that didn't happen, we'd still be in the game right now. We possibly could have won.
I know y'all faced Madison last year, then y'all lost. Did you feel maybe a different, maybe more confidence coming into this game this year because you faced them already?
Yes, sir, I did. The whole game, I had that good feeling in me, And you have to, as a senior, you can't have any doubts because it'll just eat you as you go on in life. But yes, I had a reassured confidence since we played them last year. Last year it was nervous, but this year it was just time for payback. But
sure.
They got the upper hand.
Did you feel they were any faster, any bigger, any better than you guys?
No, sir, I did not. They just played a little bit better than we did. We had some miscues, a few turnovers, and that led to their points. But we were right there the whole way until the turnovers. So I really feel we could have beaten these guys.
Cibolo Steel and Edinburgh North, this was all Steel. Justin Stockton is headed to Texas Tech, and here's why. Nice little run here for him. He makes the score 7-0 Knights. More Stockton. On this run, he just has way too much speed. 36 yards to the house and the end zone. He had 82 yards in the game. Here's another nice one here. L.G. Williams pass to Jalen Harris. Just a great pass, great catch, and here's another score. Steele dominated this game. They had 352 yards of total offense, winning by a final score of 48-14. Port Isabel taking on Lavernia in the third round of the playoffs. Special teams getting things going early on for PI. Miguel Ramirez launching himself, blocks that one, then recovers it for a touchdown. Port Isabel on top 7-0. Lavernia comes back though. Watch quarterback Colby Skelton. He takes this one, breaking tackles down the sideline, inside the 10-yard line. Then the first play of the second quarter, Vince Gill, he scores, and we're all tied 7-7. Still in the second quarter now here, more Lavernia. This time it's Levi Andrews, and he rips off a big run here. Port Isabel trying to keep up with the young man, and he is finally stopped at the 9-yard line. Gill finishes the drive, 14-7, Lavernia leading right there. Next PI possession, it's a fumble picked up by the Bears, and they take this one to the house. 21-7, Lavernia at the half. In the third quarter, though, Port Isabel jumps right back into this game. Here they are moving. Watch this. And there is going to be a slam to the ground after the whistle. Attack on another 15 yards. Next play, halfback pass. Gordo Garza to Miguel Ramirez, 21-14. Port Isabel right back into this contest. After forcing a punt, PI gets the ball right back. Juan Aguilera with the big-time run here. 42 yards to get in the red zone. Same drive here. We're in the fourth quarter now, and Port Isabel about to tie this football game. But no, they lose the ball at the 20-yard line. Lavernia recovers it. Port Isabel got the ball back one more time, but had to punt it away. Lavernia runs out the clock, and they win it by a final score of 21-14.
Difference of the game. You can't turn the ball over. Gave them a touchdown. We're going to tie it up, and we fumbled the football. So, penalties at the wrong time. So you can't do that at this level. And if you do, you don't advance. So they had a great football team. They did a great job. It's good. It's a good football game. We just turned the ball over, and they didn't. So that's the difference.
There was a lot of mistakes. It's just small things. That we easily could have won this football game. We just put ourselves in a bad position. Mistakes is what killed us. It wasn't the way we wanted to end the year, but I can't thank Stump enough for giving me best 4 years of my life so far. And Tarbert football is never going to die.
I know y'all came up short, but y'all played really hard tonight.
Yeah, I give. They were a good team also, but we just couldn't execute the little things. Penalties what killed us, and then the fumbles, that was it.
Yeah. How were they? They were pretty good, but y'all held your own against them.
Yeah, they were pretty quick. I gave them that, but it's little things that messed us up. That was it.
I know it's tough for you right now, but do you feel like you just left it all out here in the field and did whatever you could?
Yeah. If there's one thing to say about my team, I'm glad of the way we played tonight, and we just couldn't get things going offensively. But you gotta tip your hats off to their defense. They had good lateral speed, and they had a scouted pretty good on offense. Our defense played a heck of a job, and I'm proud of them. I'm proud of everyone on the team.
I know they had speed and quickness. You think that led to a couple of the turnovers tonight?
It did, because they would get in the backfield. They'll beat the blocks a couple times, and which led them to get in the backfield before we could pitch it off, and that just disrupts the whole timing. It's all timing.
Well, Jazz, generally on the show here, Jake and I have started with the 5As and gone down to 3, but since we were both at the Port Isabel game, remember it was one of those Fridays where they were all up in Corpus. Corpus was the place to be. We actually got there early enough to Cal Allen to be able to throw the football on the field together. This guy's still got a pretty good arm.
Yeah, and you, deceivingly quickness. It's like
amazing.
You're back at TCU.
I was about to say, man, back in the 1912 when we wore leather helmets. Anyhow, the Port Isabel game was very exciting. I felt like, first of all, the speed of the game in this 21-14 loss was surprising to them. Agreed?
Yeah.
And the kids even said so on film.
Yeah, if you watch them, the linebackers for Lavernia were just something else. They were able to track the ball left and right. You weren't going to get out the outside the edges, and they really pinched in the middle. So they took away lanes.
They took away lanes for the cutback on the sweep. They got there before the ball did a couple of times. The penetration was very sound. I was impressed with their end. That big old stocky 44, tall 88. Little number one was hitting. So Lavernia's defense, I think, impressed me more than I thought it would. They'd given up, 160 a game, so they had a pretty good number.
Yeah.
I was surprised. And so what happens when you can't run the sweep? It cuts down the number of options. And Port Isabel, in the third quarter, when they got some ground game going, it was either an inside handoff or a cutback on the sweep. Aguilera's big run late in the third quarter was a 40-yarder, and that was that type of play. They did, though, however, outgain the Bears. It was 190 to 169. So as you may know, the defense played a pretty good ball game.
Yeah, look, we were wondering when PI was going to have that game that was, going to be the eye-awakening game. Yeah. And this was it. I mean, it sucks that it was, at this point of the season, they didn't have a game like that all year. They played pretty much, I don't want to say perfect games, but
pretty darn close. I mean, they'd been down by 7 once. I don't think they'd been down at halftime. So here, Port Isabel, okay, they start the game, they get a nice drive to 33, but they don't get anything out of it. Later, they block the punt. Boy, Ramirez got up there big time. That was a great play by him. They get a 7-0 lead. But at that point in time, once they started running their offense, they were kind of stunned that they couldn't run the ball at first. And I think that kind of cut them up short. Meanwhile, Lavernia didn't do anything incredible on offense. They had some speed. They had some pretty big offensive linemen.
Yeah, they did.
They really did. Tall offensive linemen, maybe not as heavy as PI's. At any rate, it's 14-7 in the second quarter. PI is still right there. We still haven't seen any intimations of tarpon time, right? That when they really get it going. But the fact is that fumble late in the half, I think it was 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes, Lavernia takes it in, 21-7 at the half, and maybe some people expected PI to quit, but they did not.
No, they didn't. And in the third and fourth quarter, they came back. They held the Bears scoreless in the second half.
Yeah. Well, the third quarter is 3 and out.
Yeah.
They didn't have anything.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, PI got the big run at the end of the third. They hit the halfback pass, my favorite play in football, maybe outside the quarterback's knee.
And who threw it?
Gordo. My man, 31, got us there. That guy, listen, those kids are so quality, man. I hate to see them lose just because they work so hard. Some of those guys have been up there on the varsity for 4 years, 3.5 years, man. This was hard to take. Well, at any rate, okay, so PI gets to 21-14. Relatively cool evening. It wasn't terribly cold. It was dry. It was a great night for football. So they get there, they make a stop, they bring the ball down, and they get, I think it's 6 minutes to go, and they fumble inside the 20. 3 turnovers in the game because they had an interception on the screen earlier in the day. You can't do that.
Yeah.
2 maybe, 1 is okay, but 3 is probably going to kill you unless the other team's turning over, which Lavernia was not.
No, they pretty much played a
very solid game.
Solid game. And they had that pick that they had was. That was a crazy pick because it was like a little one-handed, scoop it in, and then he lost it, but they recovered it. So,
that was a wild play. The other thing I think PI probably had a problem with is they were offsides on defense 3 times, and they let Lavernia out of some holes. But the defense overall, Mondragon had 10 tackles. Here's what I think. Nobody had a great game on defense for PI. The unit was sound, but nobody made a takeaway. Nobody made a couple of sacks, tackles for loss. They didn't really get that big play from the defense. But like those guys said on film, I think the defense played well. The offense, I think, came back, and I think that the team showed its character by making a run at it and getting to 7 and getting all the way down there inside the 20. You just can't do that in the third round, and so therefore they did not win the game.
Yeah, and you look at all the games, that was the most surprising.
I think it was too.
Because I think we all thought that PI, even if they have a hard game,
they're going to go here, then they're going to beat Cuero. Although, believe me, Sinton beat Cuero. That was a surprise. So PI is kicking itself right now because I know it can beat Sinton. Yeah. Raymondville beat Sinton, and PI killed Raymondville twice, or beat them once, beat them pretty good the second time. So I feel like this was the game. See, here's the funny part, Jake. Last week I was scared of Orange Grove, but I thought Lavernia, I wouldn't say they'd be a piece of cake, but I thought they'd win.
Yeah.
Execution, like they said on the video, man. Well, okay, so now, Port Isabel now has gone to the third round 15 times. You name any other program that's done it, you can't, because they're the ultimate playoff team. Them and Harlingen have the most appearances, most wins, blah, blah, blah. They missed their chance, did this group, to join that upper echelon of PI football history. I mean, we're talking about a team that's gone to at least the state quarter 7 times, all right? Starting back in 80, 81, I think they lost to Cameron Yo, 25-14 in the semi. So basically, this is a team that's used to going deep in the playoffs. The legacy of this PI team will be excellence. And last year's 4-deep run, but this year's team, because they didn't win that third game, we're going to talk about that with the 5A teams. You can't necessarily say that it's as good as some of the other teams. Now, this is starting the argument, of course. When the games are over and the season's done, then you can start talking about history and legacies and whatnot. And this is just my personal opinion. But there have been some teams. I mean, they've had 2 5-deep teams, guys. They've had 3 or 4 4-deep teams. So I thought this team had the chance to do it. I really feel like talent-wise, if you look back in history, I would say the 81 team with all those stars they had, maybe the 94 team. But other than that, that team that went so far in 03, the Missile and a couple other guys really carried them, and they didn't have the overall talent. Port Isabel this year had more talent than almost any team in its history, and I know that it wishes it had gone farther, but the fact is, guys, be proud of what you did. And, the fact is, we'll always remember this season. It's been great.
Yeah, and and I got to cover them last year all the way through the summer, through 7-on-7, and this year. So it feels like, look, I coached somewhere else, but it feels like I was.
Everybody had a stake in that. At the game, Eladio Jaime showed up, Mondo Garza, Mike Gonzalez, all these cats from the past, Joe Artemoso. I mean, it was like a reunion. Valley Morning Star and Lower Valley reunion, all on the field watching PI. We had a blast, man. We were all yelling and screaming and rip-roaring and rooting for PI. In fact, after the game, we all went over to Chili's in Kingsville. I didn't really feel like commiserating and being part of the group because I felt like just going outside and kicking somebody, kicking the bush and falling down or something. I guess I must have taken it too seriously, but here's the reason why. And here's why I started the show by saying I was unhappy with the headline. I guess because I really truly feel like I get involved. Like you just said, we want these teams to win, especially in playoffs. When teams play each other, hey, all bets are off. They're going to root for nobody. But when it's our guys against their guys, I ain't never been to Lavernia, like I said last week. I was really mad, and not at the kids, and not at the coaches, because those guys are awesome. They've proven themselves year after year. It's just the result that made me unhappy, and I'm still kind of depressed about it, if you want to know the truth. I have to admit.
Yeah, I just think that, out of all the games, this was the game that we thought was the, I don't want to say sure thing, but it was the surest thing.
And that begs the final and eternal question, and I'm not trying to be controversial because I've told you I'm not that way. Do you think the PI had, not that they were looking ahead, but that they, there was a lot of pressure on that team. Everybody kept saying, well, you're going to go there, you're going to go to state, you're going to do this. I'm not saying it affected their play, but boy, that's a lot to carry on your shoulders up to Cal Allen, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know what? It's hard to have a perfect season where you don't have hiccups. Right. You just wish that the hiccups were during the regular season.
Yeah, week 7, week 3. Well, and bottom line is you can blame this guy for putting all this pressure on him. I didn't have anything to do with it. It's so media hypocrisy, right? It's so bad. Anyway, we love the PI season, and we also love the Sharyland season, and we also love the Edinburgh North. So let's take a quick break here on the show, and when we get back, we'll talk about those 5A teams that can say that they got the farthest of any teams in the Valley. What are we going to break to?
Oh, let's go to our scholar athlete.
A scholar athlete. See, and that's the thing. That doesn't have as much to do with they won this game or they made it to this round. Great players who do great work in the field and in the classroom, off the field, etc. And I enjoy highlighting those type of guys. So let's see what we got this time.
Family support, family influence. It's all about the family when it comes to Alexis Hernandez and his success in the classroom.
I'm doing sports and education, which my parents have really emphasized that education comes first. So most of my time is towards school, and then sports comes second.
Alexis is a junior and currently ranked 3rd in his class. His parents immigrated from Mexico, worked as farm workers, became U.S. citizens, and now own a successful construction business.
My mom's from China, Nuevo León. My dad's from General Terán, which is an hour away from Monterrey. They've told me about all the stories about from Florida orange fields to Idaho potato, everything. So they don't want us to work in that kind of environment, so they've told us strive for the best.
Scholarly success runs in the family. His sister graduated a few years back as salutatorian and is about to graduate from UTPA. Alexis' family influence also comes from his deceased grandfather, who passed away of cancer. Alexis, in his memory, would now like to study medicine.
He's been my guardian angel, and I do everything towards him. I always tell him, before I go to bed, I thank the Lord upstairs, and I thank him for always taking care of me.
Alexis Hernandez, the South Texas College Scholar Athlete of the Week.
Well, Jake, I was looking at those highlights of the Edinburgh North game, and when Steele came out, it was kind of scary, man. Golly, it looked like the Oakland Raiders out of the 70s.
Yeah, and from what our camera guy, Nick Michaela, said, they had 2 guys that are about 6'6", 6'4", and they're on the defensive side across from David Antaldua.
That's one of the few times when you can see Big Dave kind of looking up here and seeing guys instead of looking down here. So, hey, there's no mistaking it. Steele's one of the best teams in the state. I feel like they have a chance to win that region. In fact, I think they will win the region. Then they're going to play Katy. Who knows after that? But for Edinburgh North, very quietly now, in the last 5 years, do you realize that Edinburgh North has now gone 3 deep 3 times?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, and they built teams because they've had where they've dropped. They had subpar years, and then the next year they're back up.
Well, that's a testament to the program. And if there's any team in the Valley that plays like its coaches, steady and cool, then it's Edinburgh North. They don't get all uptight about stuff. They're just a workmanlike team, as I said all year. Against a team with superior athletes, you can work as hard as you want. And sometimes they're just going to break runs, and sometimes they're going to run you down. Yeah, I felt like they had their shots. Man, I think Whitesides and Adrian Alvarez each got a touchdown. I mean, they threw some balls. I don't think anybody we have or have had for years could hang with Steele, the team that Steele is right now, and so that's just the way it works. But I wanted to mention that about the Cougars because prior to when Roy Gottison and those guys got there, they'd won a playoff game 2 different years, I think 94 and 01. Well, 3 deep in 09 and back-to-back 3 deeps. It would have been nice to break through, but any team can say that. You got teams from all over the state that say, well, we got this far, we didn't break through. So the postscript on Edinburgh North are these things. 1, 3 out of 5, they've been 3 deep. That's pretty good success, to say the least. 40 seniors on that team. That kind of gives me pause when I'm thinking about next year.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, because in the district, a lot of the kids have gone to one school, so it's going to hurt eventually the other schools. But Edinburgh North, they seem to always have guys that come up. They fill spots from the JV level up, and it's not like they've got a freshman that plays 4 years. They have guys that eventually
fill turn and play. I feel like from what I'm hearing, they have some good lower level teams, and Benitez is back, Whiteside is back, a handful of kids, but 40 seniors is a lot. I feel like they got the most out of that team that they could get. They got a draw in which they had Steele, and there's nothing you can do about it. From what I understand, they went up there and played hard and comported themselves well, and so that's the end to that season. Hell of a season for Edinburgh North, though.
Yeah, it was a great season for them. If you think about it, next year, you're not going to have Sherryland in the same district anymore because they're going forward.
That's going to be weird. Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to be negative about it, but I'm a reactionary, so I'm not big on change. So I'm getting used to seeing La Jolla's and meeting those cats, and now we're going to have who knows where and what 4A's and all kinds of stuff.
So Edinburgh North has a good chance to get back to to a higher level because a lot of the teams that normally reload too just as well, they're going to be gone. Donna, Sherryland. So it's going to be a new district next year, and besides maybe Edinburgh Villa in the district, I don't know who's going to really have the numbers with them.
I can't even tell you who's going to be in that district. He knows more about it than I do. I'll just show up and whoever the games are, I'll go. Put it that way. You can tell me later who's going to be where at whom. So speaking of Sherryland, though, pretty good effort on the part of the Rattlers. It certainly wasn't relatively one-sided like it was last year, was it?
No, and a lot of people, including probably us, we didn't think that was going to happen.
Right.
We really thought with the quarterback that Madison had and Enos.
Oh, God, that guy got some feet, man. You see him run?
6'4". He's 6'4", 200-some pounds.
Roethlisberger?
Yeah, and meaty guy. He's the size of he's almost David Ansel-Dua's size.
How big he is. Quarterback. I see David quarterback for a couple of plays.
Yeah. But he nice touch and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But the story was Madden had a long 50-yard run.
That guy was tough, man. He had a big throw too early, man. Brandon Garza, the Garza the younger continues his fine play, and Christian had his moments. Hey, man, they were right there in the third quarter. That's all you can ask for.
Yeah, and look, we were driving up, and I remember.
Oh, that's right.
We were driving up.
Pinball machine.
Yeah, it was 21-24. Sherryland was down, and we're like, oh my gosh, they're going to make a game of it. Look, turnovers were the reason this game kind of turned.
And that big Yancey, man, he had 10 sacks too on the season so far. So he's not. I think he's a defensive end.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That ball run like
defensive end, but he looked like a corner running.
Great. So yeah, Deion Sanders number 2.
Yeah.
What are they doing up there at Madison? As usual, Jim Streety, the coach, he was complimentary of the Valley teams. Madison did what it always does to a Valley team, it seems like this time of year, and this is not to repeat the negative headline that we started the show with. You hang with them, bam, there they go. Happened to Weslaco in 07. Remember that? Weslaco had them in the third quarter, and bang, they exploded. Harlingen was there. They were tied in the third quarter. Bink. There they go. There's a 67-yard touchdown pass right after a turnover that could have been. So, it just happens that way with great athletes. They'll, sooner or later, the time bomb ticking will explode, and you got to make sure you're ahead or that you can match them. They matched them for 2 or 3 quarters, did Sherryland, and they just ran out of gas, and like you say, those turnovers killed them.
Yeah, but you have to give it to Coach Adame and his coaching staff because Ron Steams, the last 2 years, since he's taken over, they've broken through that stigma that was around Sherryland.
They got their third round 2 years in a row. So then let's talk a little bit about Sherryland historically. I always enjoy doing that. Do you know, this is my fact for the week here, Sharyland is the only team in the history of the Valley to make the third round of the playoffs or to win either a regional title back in the day or go to the third round in 4 different classes.
Really?
Yeah, Class B, Class 3A, 4A, and 5A most recently. Back in 58 and 59, the Rattlers won back-to-back regional titles. Now, back in that day, in the small schools, you only played 2 games. And then even if you won them, that was it. You didn't finish. They didn't have like a state championship in the 50s like that. So they were a regional champ. I covered them in, what was the year? They had a good team in 89, but in 86, they'd gone 3 deep. That was as a 3A team. I think Bucky Rodriguez was a coach over there. So Sharyland's had some good teams. Now, as to the argument that I've been hearing a lot about lately, every time I go to Harlingen, they want to bust my chops about, man, you picking Sharyland over? Look, Sharyland the last 6 years, you know how many games they won?
How many?
64. That's a lot of wins. That's more than 10 a season. Harlingen's won 65, so they're right there. Now, head-to-head, of course, Sharyland got them 2 years in a row. That has to hurt the Cardinals. But in terms of the overall body of work, if they'd have won this game, then they'll be the best team in 5A in the last 6 years, in my opinion. It's not that they're not now, but Harlingen has that third round win. They beat that San Antonio school at the third round and became one of only 14 teams to do it. I've been saying dirty dozen, but it was kind of an asterisk. There are 2 others. PI has done it 4 times. They won that third round game. So the measure of Valley football has always been, can you get past the third round? There ain't been that many teams that have done it. We ran down the list a couple of weeks ago. It happens about every 5 or 8 years now. I mean, you had a couple in 90, one was PI, one was Mission. So, hey, I look forward to the challenge in the Hill. I know the coaches and the players do too. So these 3 teams that made it to the third round can look at themselves now as finishing first among equals in the Valley, have taken their shot at the teams upstate, and historically, then where do they lie in the continuum? That's not necessarily for just me to decide. They have to take stock of their own historical worth. But that's what you do when the season's over. You have fun, kind of like the hot stove league in baseball. After baseball, we're worried about who's going to get traded, who had 100 RBIs, blah, blah, blah. Hey, man, it was a great season.
Yeah. Oh, and real quick on that note, by the way, about Harlingen and Sharyland.
Oh, it's great.
On our
Better
Facebook,
red than dead.
Yeah. On our Facebook page, somebody said, well, we're going to get them next year from Harlingen. I'm sorry, I got to say this right now.
Have to be a scrimmage.
Yeah, it's going to be the scrimmage because Sharyland will be a 4A next year. So they'll have Sharyland and Sharyland North. So I'm sorry. I wanted to point that out because, something that you really need to look at is that this is the last time that we're going to see this rivalry with this kind
Which I hate, and I'm glad for Sharyland and the quality of education. Let it be said. But, man, that was just getting good. Hey, for the Rattlers, it's beautiful because you shut their mouths 2 years in a row in the playoffs.
And a winner.
Yeah, well, sure. So, and of course, then you have, again, how do you adjudicate? What analysis do you use? Overall wins, body of work, that third round win. But there's really much difference between Sharyland and Harlingen, 2 best high school programs we have on the 5A level.
Yeah. Hopefully next year, Donna and Sharyland are still in the same district, so we can keep that rivalry going.
You know what? There's going to be new ones, and just because I'm an old-fashioned stick in the mud and don't want anything to change, when things do change, we'll very quickly start enjoying what we have. Some teams will go, some teams will not. New things will happen, new kids will come up. Every time I think we'll never see another fill in the blank. We'll never see another Bradley. Well,
Trevor
Bates is on his way. We'll never see a Giat. Who knows? But God, 240 runs a sub 540. He's an outstanding player. I want to see whether some of these cats will get a chance at the next level. I guarantee you, Mark Benavides will because he's 300 pounds and he's got good feet. Now, PI, let's look to next year for about 2 seconds. PI's got 4 or 5 kids back on defense. I got my list here. Of course, I put it away. Colorado, number 2 is back. Agustin Hernandez is going to be back. Gonzalez, 85. I think it's Rodriguez, 85. A lot of those guys that have played prominent roles, they're going to be there. Offensively, they got JJ back. They're going to have to find a replacement for Imart, man. I'll tell you, Martinez has had a wonderful year for PI. They lose Lozoya. So, offensive line-wise, they lose a bunch. I expect them still to be good, though. Yeah,
I think so, too. And you know what? In that district, depending on how if UIL changes that up again.
Who knows?
But, I think they'll do fine in that district right now.
Yeah, Puente's coming back 50. So I was impressed with PI, man. So they didn't get it done. Bottom line, number 2, I think. Bottom line, number 2. That's my stock phrase for the year. Bottom line is they put on a great show and they got really close. Sharyland brings back a bunch of good guys on the skill position guys like Landez and Madden. But they're going to be a little bit on defense. Who knows? Tornero's back though, and I've always Rudy Tornero. That guy's tough. Joe Garza, 56, that little guy that's just really tough, makes a lot of tackles. But then again, where are they going to go to school? We don't know.
Yeah, we're going to get chopped in half somewhere.
What do you want to do? You want to go like through every team and say it's going to be back now? Let's just start it. Let's just start the preview now, and we have 8 months to go. So,
yeah. And hopefully next week we can give you a little taste of the projections of where the districts are going, because we're not going to know for a while, but they've taken their snapshots.
Isn't it like February or something?
Yeah, and we did it the last 2 years ago. We were there for it, broadcasted live.
This coach fighting this coach in the bathroom.
Yeah. It's funny, because when we get to that point, coaches are hurrying up trying to change their schedule.
Won't play a game?
Yeah.
Won't play a game?
Yeah, so it's real fun. It's real funny. It's not fun for them, I don't imagine.
In the old days, they used to put an ad in the newspaper. San Ysidro seeking football games on these days. Boom, boom, boom. Call this number, 1-800-FOOTBALL or some such, right?
Yeah, now they go to the forum. Now they go to the forum. So.
Yeah, well, the forum is where all the great things happen. All the wise and wonderful people there. Well, Jake, we've just about reached the end of the line here. We're not going to talk about basketball? Well, time for the show, basketball.
Yeah, well, I'm neck deep in it right now, so.
I like basketball a ton, but I have to admit I'm still a little bit down about the football season being over. I mean, what can you say?
Yeah, it was a good year, though.
Next week on the show, we're going to unveil our All-Valley teams. And that's always kind of a fun thing for us to do, to hand out some accolades to people for this and that achievement. Make sure to not miss it. And make sure if you have any last-second mail-in ballots, we'll take them from all over the world, even Bangladesh.
Yeah, you can tweet them to @956sports, or you can email Jake at 956sports, or go to our Facebook page, or the forums, more importantly.
Email is old hat now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I look at somebody and say, send me an email. It look like I crawled out of the bog for like Rip Van Winkle, Oh, well. Hey, Greg Selber, it's been great. This is Jake Berry. He's been reasonably great. I'm kidding. We'll see you next week, man.